Hello, and NYU pays no property tax in New York City. Did you know that? Let's listen to the public hearing where someone talks about that. Miss Bowen talks about that. And here we go.
Good evening, commissioners. Good evening, friends here. I'm the president of the union at the City University of New York, the PSC, and we have a two-part testimony, 3 minutes for me, 3 minutes for my colleague, Professor Fabricant. We want to bring to the commission.
You hear them giggling. They love giggling, this commission. They're all gigglers. Yeah.
Commission's attention a significant source of foregone tax revenue. So our proposal goes beyond neutrality and toward additional income for the city. We believe that the Commission should consider whether it is still appropriate to exempt private universities from all New York City property taxes. Specifically, we ask that you consider whether the two largest private universities in the city, NYU and Columbia, both of which receive enormous benefit from New York City public services, should continue to be exempt from virtually all property tax.
Let's pause and look at that. Here's an article from the Washington Post. If we look here, let's see if this works. Pilot, Harvard University, 650 buildings, 25 million square feet annual. Pilot, they like to call it pilot, payment in lieu of taxes, almost $6 million. Let's look at Brown University, 236 buildings, 6.8 million square feet. Pilot, $6.5 million. Duke University, 14.6 million square feet. Payment less than $1 million. And here's our friends Columbia and NYU. More than 12 million square feet. Payment $7,000. And our friend NYU, which is more, 14.9 and probably growing astronomically. And every single square feet that goes back to NYU gets the taxpayer nothing. Payment $0. Okay. So Miss Bowen is correct.
Not only do Columbia and NYU rely heavily on city services, such as transit, parks, streets, firefighters, sanitation, and police, all of which they receive without paying any property tax to the city, almost any, but they also rely on the city's rich cultural life to attract.
Isn't that true? I mean, are the dorms free at Columbia? I don't think so, but yet their dorm buildings pay no property tax. Do the students not use the subway? Do the students not use the street? Do the teachers not use the street? Does the university not use the services of New York City? I believe so. Let's continue.
Scholars, researchers, and students. It is fair to say that neither NYU nor Columbia would have been able to expand in their last 2 decades of enormous expansion without the services and benefits of New York City. A very conservative estimate of the value of the foregone revenue is $189 million annually from NYU and $274 million annually from Columbia. That is a total of $463 million, close to $500 million in foregone property tax per year. Those estimates are based entirely on the Department of Finance figures and their formula for determining market value. We, in fact, believe that the figures are too low, but they're an important starting point. NYU and the NYU hospital system own 105 buildings in Manhattan and Brooklyn, mostly Manhattan. Most are fully exempt from property taxes. About a third are partially exempt. The Department of Finance gives these holdings an assessed value of $1.7 billion, which converts through the DOF's own formula to a market value of $3.7 billion. The potential property tax responsibility of NYU under this formula would be $188.5 million. Columbia and Columbia Presbyterian Hospitals own 194 buildings. Assuming these buildings are all class 2, 3, or 4 buildings, the market value of Columbia's real estate, based solely on the DOF figures, would be $5.6 billion. The corresponding property tax would be $274 million per year. NYU's endowment, just to remind folks, I'm almost finished, is $4 billion. Columbia just announced last week that its endowment had reached $11 billion. This is not an attack on Columbia and NYU. Both universities contribute tremendously to the cultural and intellectual life of the city. We at CUNY feel enriched by that. I'll just finish. The presence of major universities with their communities of scholars, artists, professional schools, and their public programs is a significant draw and resource for New York. But the majority of New York City's college students do not attend Columbia or NYU. And here I turn it over, if I may, to the next speaker, I believe.
Yes, that's fine, Mr. Pavlicratch.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
The majority of New York City's college students attend CUNY. In fact, nearly 2/3 of the city's high school graduates who attend college attend CUNY. While NYU and Columbia pay no property taxes, their students get the benefit of small classes, full-time professors, readily available counselors, abundantly equipped libraries, laboratories, and student centers. CUNY continues to be underfunded, so our students have to make do with crowded classrooms, leaky ceilings, too few full-time professors, and a dangerous shortage of counselors. CUNY undergraduates at the community colleges which receive funding from the city are 85% people of color and have average family incomes below $30,000. We propose that the Commission rethink the tax exemption of Columbia and NYU, collect appropriate tax revenue from these two major universities, and invest that revenue in New York's public university, CUNY. It is profoundly unjust that New York's big, expensive private universities reap all the benefits of being tax-free in New York City, while New York's public university is starved of funds. And I just want to give you two quick examples of that starvation. Part-time faculty who receive $3,200 per class, you multiply that by a full load between 6 and 8, is anywhere between approximately $25,000 and $30,000 per year, less than, for some, than what, in fact, is the student's family income of $30,000 per year. And that's for folks with master's degrees, some of whom have PhDs. We also have a rather low graduation rate. 3-year graduation rate for community colleges is approximately 22%, and for senior colleges, it's 55% in 6 years. We have a program within CUNY that only reaches 10% of all students, but it is more than double the graduation rates for CUNY students. That program and others require additional investments. Other cities in New York State, including Syracuse and Ithaca, and other cities nationally, such as Boston and Providence, have approached the problem of tax exemption for private universities by making agreements for payments in lieu of taxes or pilots. It's time for New York City to start collecting all, or at least part of that foregone $500 million and start investing in decent conditions for the vast majority of the city's college students. New York City cannot be the fairest city, big city in the world. It cannot even be minimally fair, while the 275,000 CUNY students endure substandard learning conditions, and the big private universities reap massive benefits from being in the city but do not pay property taxes. And I'll conclude by saying this. This is a university that empirically has proven that students who attend it, that it in fact has the best record nationally of moving students from poverty into the middle class. It's probably the most effective anti-poverty agency in this city, but it's woefully, woefully underfunded.
Thank you. Commissioner Parrott.
I'd like to ask a question of the PSC representatives, either one. But thank you very much for raising this issue.
I can't bother to listen to this. These commissioners are just going to say, oh, well, the tax commission is this advisory commission is run by NYU. Do you think they're going to go against NYU? Let's see.
I'm aware that the charitable exemption from property taxes is baked into the state constitution. It's not an easy thing to do to change. So it's not clear what this commission is going to be able to do about it. Although I look forward to the discussions, given that we have a co-chair from CUNY and a co-chair from NYU.
You hear that? co-chair from NYU. And let's listen to our co-chair from